typically I don't need a mic. I have a loud enough voice, but this is a good one for the recording. So when Vatsala told me that I will be interviewing Faye, थोड़ा सा nervousness हो गया because she's like the OG, right? Like, who has she not spoken to? Who has she not interviewed? And super articulate, and everything about what she does is a major fangirl moment for me. So when Kesha said that when Faye speaks, we all listen, that's very true. And I'm very excited to welcome you to CXXO. This is my favorite conference. You know, Vani said that mostly people feel that women do not support other women. And in my career of nearly 27 years, I have to say that that's never been true for me. My biggest supporters have always been women, and I hope to pay that back as well. And CXXO is truly walking the talk here, and very excited to have you here. Welcome, Faye.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to be here. It's amazing to look around the room at all the faces. And when we look at each other, we were having this conversation off stage, we can see what I call juggling knives, which the world calls balance. But it's juggling knives, really. And we can see that we have to do this on a daily basis, and I can see it in everybody's faces. And the fact that there is a day when we can come together and share intel on how to get this done is really cool. And I think that I agree with you. I want to acknowledge CXXO and Panikola for supporting women. If I look back at my career, I've had women champions. Actually, I went to college, I grew up here. I went to college at Mount Carmel. I am still in really close touch with all of my professors because they were milestones in my life when various women have sort of nudged, pushed me forward, pointed me in a direction. And I think that my biggest learning has been that women are role models by simply existing. The fact that you are here is evidence to somebody standing behind you that it's possible. And I think that's a really powerful thing that we have going. And the more of this we do, the more we can push that power forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. So welcome to the team, literally. That's what it is. So Faye, a quick question for you. Now, media plays a very important role in breaking barriers and building bridges, and sometimes breaking bridges as well. So in your decade of career, with being on the field, being behind the desk, and now building out an organization as well, what makes you excited that we're in the right direction? Are we in the right direction? What is giving you sleepless nights right now?
I think when we talk about Indian media particularly, it's giving a lot of people sleepless nights. And in my 2 decades as a journalist now, I think the thing that worries me most of all is that most Indian media has forgotten that journalism is non-fiction. You can't make stuff up, which is, you know, they're in the wrong category at this point. And that really worries me. I mean, when I started my career I started actually reading the news in All India Radio here in Bangalore. And then I worked with CNBC TV18 as a business reporter on the field. And at that point, when you told someone you were a reporter, and I was, you know, 21, 22, people would say, oh, wow. You know, it was like, it was cool. It was special that you got that job. Now,
dude, I still feel it's really cool.
Now I feel that sort of credibility, that relationship that citizens should have with journalists has sort of broken down. And that's what gives me sleepless nights. And I've sort of, you know, there's a much longer story, but the short story is I've dedicated the next few decades of my career to fixing that, you know, putting it simply.
That actually leads to my next question. So no major media house has really been built out over the last 20 years. You know, I don't count a certain company that starts with R, but, you know, NDTV probably is it. And you are building in an industry that is rarely open to startups and has major policy/government pushback as well. So talk to us about Beetroot. I'm a subscriber, and if you guys have not subscribed, please subscribe to Beetroot. It is a great form to get your news every day. And talk to us about Beetroot. What are you building? And how is it to be a woman builder in this industry?
So I quit television news 4 years ago. And I quit it then because I thought it had hit rock bottom. But every week it finds a new bottom. And now I'm thinking that, okay, maybe it was not so bad back then. And when I quit, I actually spent a lot of time, you know, we get this break in our career where you get like that moment to sort of think because you've not been thinking. And I asked myself if this is what I want to do with my life. Do I want to be a journalist? Is this my contribution to society? Is this my legacy? Is this what I want to be remembered for? What kind of journalist do I want to be? After much soul searching, I realized I have no employable skills. So I have to be a journalist because I can't do anything else. So I decided to be a journalist. And I was trying to figure out what kind of work I wanted to do. And I realized that in television, I had also been part of that problem. Because what had happened and what has happened is that news lacks dignity. And dignity for everybody. Dignity for the reporter, dignity for the person who's watching, for the person who's being interviewed, for the subject matters that are being dealt with. There's a general lack of respect and dignity all around. And so my stated purpose with Beetroot News that I develop with my team later is to deliver news with dignity, where we treat you with respect as readers, saying you're an intelligent person. I don't have to tell you how to feel about this. I don't have to yell at you. I don't have to make stuff up. I don't have to exaggerate. I don't have to like write bold headlines that, upset you. I just have to tell you what happened. And you are intelligent enough to figure out whether that's good or bad or how you want to deal with that information. My job is only to hand over that information in a respectful, fact-checked, dignified fashion. So that was the starting point for Beetroot. I started it then on my phone in the back of an Ola. I started writing the news on Instagram because it infuriated me that nobody was telling the stories that needed to be told. And that became what I called news that should be the headlines. And then just when and I had 4 young people who followed me out of television, and we said, we're going to start this company, we're going to get this office, we're going to raise funds, and then COVID happened to us like 2 weeks later, and we were trapped at home. And we said, you know what, let's just work anyway. So we started going to the hospitals and to the cops and telling the stories of the people during COVID. We started putting out information at a time when information was really muddled. And it was the difference between life and death during COVID was information. I think that through those 2 years of COVID, we became that voice that made sense to people, saying, if I read it here, then it must be fact-checked. And I didn't have to go out and tell people that, oh, we are doing this with credibility. People sort of just figured it out. And now we've taken that one step further, and we've launched Beetroot News, which is our brand under which this will function. It's starting off with an app that does text. We do audio news programs. We'll eventually do video. And our next step will be to do it in at least 6 or 7 different Indian languages to provide that service. So everybody should have access to good, dignified news.
And how do the larger players in the industry take a Beetroot? Do you see pushback from anybody else in the industry, the competitive landscape?
See, I think that largely what's happening in the larger market is that the TV guys are still preoccupied with themselves. They don't realize that nobody's watching TV anymore. But there has been a regulatory push from their end saying, you should regulate these guys as well, make life difficult for them as well. But the good thing is that, it's organized, we're all regulated, I'm registered with the I&B ministry. So if you've been in the industry for long enough, you know how to sort of work your way around.
So news with dignity, with compassion, and portrayed the right way. That's the genesis of Beetroot. I love that. So when you and I were chatting earlier, the obvious question of gender discrimination kind of came up. And you were talking about your field experience of many years where there was zero gender discrimination. And then there's the boardroom, completely different story. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so for me, this was interesting because I worked as a reporter in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, for some time in Chennai, and some time in other cities. We traveled through rural India. And I never once felt that I was treated differently for being a young woman at that time. But when I hit management and went into the boardrooms, then I was made, I felt different. I mean, initially it was awkward because in the executive mancom, I was the only woman there. And there was sort of this understanding of, we've let you in, you should be grateful and not talk too much, not ask too many questions, don't disrupt too much, just be happy that you're here. There's a lot of casual sexism, which I think that we all learn how to work around or work with. But I think that for me, the bigger challenge was people would literally turn around and say, tum ladki ho, pyar se apna kaam chalao na. Like, why are you being such a ball buster? Why are you being so hard? Because at the end of the day, I was running a television channel. I was responsible for P&L. I had to ask a man who was 15 years my senior what his sales numbers were, and he didn't like it. Because he was like, why is this girl asking me questions? And that was the first time in my career that someone pointed out my gender, at work. It had not happened on the field. It had not happened in the villages of India. It had happened in the boardroom. And for me, that was it was a step back. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that we're still dealing with this stuff.
Aha moment completely, and I think that's where the pyramid comes in, right? There are so many of us who step into the workforce, and as time passes, there are fewer and fewer who make it to the top. And that is one of the questions, because there is a lot of nudging, they're pushed out, and the ones who stay are those who've kind of said that this is it, I'm not going to budge. Or have the right mentors, have the right people who are rooting for you, which could be both men and women. We heard about the ICICI story, and hats off to banking. They've done a phenomenal job with that as well. Building, reporting, being a mom, being here for a conference, looking after parents, aging parents at this point. Enough to drive a lot of us crazy. How do you keep yourself sane?
I think everyone here is largely going through the same thing. I can see nodding happening. And, we were sharing just before we came up on stage, the difference between women entrepreneurs and men entrepreneurs is that men can go home and tell their families that, listen, there's a fundraise, due diligence chal raha hai, term sheet ban raha hai. I'm not going to be available for the next 1 month, right? No PTA meeting, no dance recital. Don't call me, figure it out. We don't have that luxury. Who are we going to tell? Right?
Definitely a lot of nodding heads there, 100%.
So, we don't, there are all of these various things that we're all, and I think Google Pay has complicated my life even further, because now I was just sitting there making a payment for Sabzi before we came up on stage, right? We have all these things that are happening at the same time. And we have chosen to be entrepreneurs, which means that these are jobs, these are organizations that will fall apart without your attention, as opposed to a normal job. And you don't have the option of stepping back from any of these things. You can't say that I'm not going to pay attention to this child's well-being or schooling or to my parents or to my in-laws or to my house or to the dog or to the painting or to the whatever else is going on in your life. Somehow it's all our responsibility. And I feel that when we choose as women to do something demanding, and that's a conscious choice on a daily basis, there's this whole, but you already have so much going on. Wouldn't it be easier to just take a job? And we then take that time out of sleep, out of self-care, out of our workouts, out of meeting our friends for coffee. So we cut away all of the stuff that makes us us. And we sacrifice those things to be here today and to be who we are. And that is massive. Being a woman is hard. Being a working woman is very, very hard. And to be a woman entrepreneur is goosebumpy, guys. And it's, like I said, right, you wake up every morning and you choose to do this. And I know there are days when you're like, I should just run a shop, it would be easier. मैं दाल भेजूंगी. You know, it's just like one of those things, and I do it to myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why have I chosen to put myself through this? Because it's who we are. And we're also all of those other things for all of those other people. And I'm going to say something a little unpopular, and I know my time is up. When I had my baby, there were a lot of, these brand associations for mommy baby products that came up. And I spoke to my team, and I said, you know what? I have been married for 13 years. I've been someone's wife, but that's not my identity. And I'm going to be someone's mom. That's not my identity either. This is who I am, and this doesn't change. And I think by being here today, you've all in some way said the same thing, that yes, I have all of this other stuff going on, and that's important, but it's not who I am. This is who I am. And it gives me so much pride that I have been chosen and given this time to talk to you, because each of you is so amazing. And I have goosebumps right now just looking at all of you, because I know from looking at you what you do on a daily basis, and it's just amazing.
So time's up, but I will take 2 minutes to summarize this, because this was phenomenal completely. So, I've been in the industry about 15 odd years, and we continue to struggle with the number of women entrepreneurs that are there. There are just not enough of us, and there's just not enough funding for us. I think a wise woman once gave me some advice that you will never belong to the club, so create your own club. And how do you do that? You change the culture. How do you change the culture? You change the culture by the stories you tell, your story, by the actions you take, your action, and the heroes we hold high. And again, it's you. Because the more stories we hear, the more heroes we hear about, the more people we know who've been able to do this, I think the more we believe that we will be able to do it as well. So important to get these stories out. And while we're doing a good job of it at CXXO, but I think amplification is needed from so many more angles. So thank you so much for joining us, Faye. This was phenomenal, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.